how will the internet work in the future? It will use Ethereum. Ethereum is a planetary scale computer powered by blockchain technology. Applications built on Ethereum run exactly as programmed, without any possibility of downtime, censorship, or third-party interference. Ethereum is the secure backbone for everything from e-commerce to the Internet of Things, enabling transparent governance for communities and businesses while keeping user communication secure. Mix, the Ethereum IDE, makes it easy to develop, debug, and deploy your applications, while building UIs is done using your existing web development skills, tools, and favorite frameworks. Ethereum handles user authentication and secure payments for you, as well as messaging and even decentralized storage. And there's no need to sign up or pay for servers to host your applications, as Ethereum is the world's first zero-infrastructure platform, allowing your users to regain control over the management of their own funds and personal data. Join the many already developing on Ethereum.
So the thing that's really wacky about Ethereum, the thing that's so strange about it, is that it might just be the single most valuable technology that we ever see in our lifetimes. Just let that sink in. The way to think about Ethereum is that it's trying to eat contracts. Here's where you need to start. First, it's a basic question. Is the internet eating everything? And if you think that it is, if you think the internet has the potential to eat everything, then some protocol is going to eat contracts. At the moment, Ethereum is the super dominant contender for eating contracts. It turns out that all financial markets are worth about $250 billion. Just try to process that. I can't process it. If you can, send me some help. Ethereum has the potential to eat not just financial markets, but every kind of contract. I mean, think about what this means. Ethereum, if it eats contracts, might even eat governments. Now, I know this sounds weird, but what is a government? I mean, a government is a series of courts that enforces contracts. If Ethereum is successful, you might see it radically change the way that we people with each other.
What is Ethereum? Ethereum is also a blockchain technology. However, the main difference is that with Ethereum, you could build a Bitcoin application for transferring value. So you could build the currency like Bitcoin. But you can also build a social network. You can also build a decentralized Wikipedia. And you can build whatever you would like, because the programming language used in Ethereum is Turing complete, meaning that it's like Java, it's like C++ or JavaScript, meaning that you could build anything you would like, guys, on Ethereum. And all the transactions and all the logic, all the code that you write will be executed in a decentralized manner on the blockchain, much like the Bitcoin network works when I send value. So there will be no intermediaries. Meaning that if you would like, for example, to build the next Facebook on Ethereum, this social network would not have any central player. There would not be any Facebook corporation sitting in between users. All the users would communicate peer-to-peer, and all the data and all the value created in the network would belong to the users. Let me give you an example, guys. If we have a social network based on Ethereum, the users could directly get the funds from advertisers, because advertisers would put their resources into the social network, and then whoever watches the ad would get this ad revenue, not some kind of corporation sitting in between the users. So you as a user would actually be a shareholder of the network, and that is one of the coolest things with Ethereum and decentralized technology.
If a company is polluting some river nearby and the residents are unhappy, they're willing to pay for this cleanup because they're bearing the negative externality. So what they can do is, if the government's not responsive, unwilling to help, they can set one of these smart contracts that's gonna pay out to the company only if the company cleans up the river by this due date. And this solves the free rider problem, because the free rider problem is you don't have a guarantee that the other people in the economy or whatever, the other actors, are also going to contribute to this thing that everyone wants. So by allowing people to commit funds in such a way that they can withdraw their funds if this doesn't actually meet the threshold, all trustless, you can implement a lot of cool game theoretical solutions directly in Ethereum.
Bitcoin has a programming language that you can use to interact with the protocol as a developer. It's a very limited programming language. In Ethereum, this programming language is much more expressive, and it's higher level. What this means is that for developers building applications on top of the protocol, it's actually much easier to work with. So what we've seen in Ethereum is a much richer organic developer ecosystem develop very, very quickly, which is what has driven Ethereum's price growth, which has been actually much more aggressive than Bitcoin.
So would you agree with what Fred had to say?
Yeah, I would agree with Fred.
You think the market cap is going to surpass?
I don't know if I would agree with as aggressive a timeline as Fred, but I think in the long term, absolutely.
I think that Ethereum will bypass, the market cap of Ethereum will bypass the market cap of Bitcoin by the end of the year.
Hey, what's up guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun channel. If you're new to cryptocurrencies in general, some of this info might go over your head, but I think it's important to point out the positives as well as the potential dangers of Ethereum as it ties to familiar names from globalist interests. And personally for me on this channel, I have my views which you may not agree with, but I get to share them anyway. Because for the time being, we do have the ability to freely express our thoughts on the internet. So I got an email from Sean over at SGT Report this morning, and he shared with me this video by Press for Truth titled Ethereum Linked to Bilderberg Gets Putin Endorsement, What You Need to Know.
So what exactly is the endgame for Ethereum here, and why is it now getting the endorsement of Vladimir Putin? And perhaps the bigger question is, was Vitalik's recent meeting with Putin worrisome to the likes of the Bilderberg Group, or is this all going according to plan? We know that the Bilderberg Group was instrumental in the formation of the euro, and it's because of their key members on the inside that we have fiat banking as we know it today, where fractional reserve lending is the name of their game. And it seems they have their hands in Bitcoin as well. In 2015, Blockstream, a business which builds Bitcoin sidechain solutions, was able to secure a venture capital round of $55 million, which came from AXA Strategic Ventures, and their CEO at the time was Henry DeCastries, who now just so happens to serve as the chairman of the Bilderberg Group. So where do you see this going from here? Is Ethereum Bitcoin's rival from a bitter Peter Thiel who wants to see PayPal on steroids and to appease the Bilderberg Group and to come up with a better Bitcoin? Or is Bitcoin controlled by the cabal and Ethereum is the real deal, a digital cash system made for and by the people, hence why someone like Vladimir Putin would want to endorse it?
I'll leave a link to the whole video so you can check it out, but he definitely brings up good points. Ethereum has been funded by all the nefarious organizations that we're suspicious of. And I think there's a reason for that. Now, to begin, there's a lot of people saying that Ethereum is the new Bitcoin. It's going to take over Bitcoin. And kind of, I think it will in terms of its value and the market cap and all that. It's possible that it will pass Bitcoin before the end of 2017, certainly perhaps before the end of 2018, the year of the rising phoenix out of the ashes of the burning fiat. The thing is, Bitcoin was made as a store of value for trade. So in other words, its design was to become a digital currency. Ethereum and its token Ether was not actually designed to operate as a digital currency. Rather, Ether is used as gas or a fee to fuel decentralized applications that are launched on top of Ethereum and its protocol. So in the same way we use WordPress, and it's allowed so many people to build their own websites using WordPress, Ethereum is kind of the same thing, but for decentralized applications. One positive is that, as of this recording, we're beginning to see the new internet emerging with something like Ethereum and decentralized blockchain technology, a distributed ledger, being the main proponent where we are freed from the chains of the central banks and governments, and instead it's open and free peer-to-peer. So the power of Ethereum is unquestionable, and Ethereum truly is the Web 3.0 being built here because it integrates this power for security and encryption, but in the hands of the people, not in the hands of governments. So when somebody builds a decentralized application and puts it on the blockchain, people can interact with it, but I believe, and I don't know for sure on this, but I believe most of it is open source, so people can collaborate with you to improve the application or expand it or whatever. And We'll look at a couple of these applications that are in development right now and show you that, yeah, the whole Bilderberg thing, absolutely, for sure, fingerprints all over Ethereum, the early stages of building this new web platform. Now, as a follower of Jesus Christ living here in 2017, it's actually quite remarkable to see how ridiculously prophetic the emergence of Ethereum is in light of what we know about the mark of the beast and the image of the beast in Revelation 13. And I'm going to flesh out some of the details in Age of Deceit 3 as I continue to work on summarizing all of this and putting it into a concise, consumable fashion where people can just watch a film and understand what's going on, both right in front of them, but also on a larger scale. But to give you some perspective and projection from where I sit, number one, this is the beginning of a hive mind. You know, we've seen the Borg on Star Trek and all these things where each person is just a central node. It's just a body out in the field, but the hive brain is what determines its conduct. If you think about the reason why decentralization and a distributed ledger is so appealing is because it provides consensus, agreement within all the nodes at the same time. And if there's a disagreement at one point, that transaction is rejected. So you see how this sort of thing is both very secure, but also can lead to a hive mind mentality where if you are not assimilated or you try to conduct a transaction that is against the consensus, then you will be rejected and thrown out. Number two, AI integration. I would consider low-level artificial intelligence as the same thing as high-level automation. You know, sentience within the artificial intelligence as an awake, self-aware being is something that I don't think the technologists will actually achieve. Rather, I think either it's going to be a human mind upload type situation or a conjuring of demonic entities, perhaps Satan himself, within the machine that causes the moment of a technological singularity. And actually, based on how I'm understanding biblical prophecy now and the timing geopolitically as well as technologically, I think it all has something to do with some kind of resurrection. But I'm getting ahead of myself. At the basic level here, there's something that's being developed called decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs. And once AI is integrated, people will just manage these artificial intelligent companies that produce goods or services and make money for you. And the AI DAO itself, the only overhead it's going to have is the gas fee, or the amount that it costs to run the application. But otherwise, it's going to run on its own. And again, it can be beneficial in the short term for providing goods and services in a whole new way on the internet. But on the long term, we can see how, again, this can really take up all commerce. You know, if Amazon jumps on Ethereum and just takes over, you can see how all trade of goods and services can become owned and operated by a single artificial intelligent company. Number three is smart grids and smart cities.
So imagine if you have some smart energy grids. The basic problem is that in a neighborhood, there's some imbalances in energy across the community. So one house might have excess heat while another might be too cold. And the ideal solution is you have this house that has excess heat sell its heat to the house that's too cold. And therefore, you can cancel this energy difference and make the community more power efficient overall. So in other words, you're also just creating an energy market, right? But the thing is, you need custom infrastructure between these houses, from house A to house B to house C. And the current infrastructure only flows unidirectionally from the utility companies to the endpoints, the houses. And this utility company is not going to want to build this smart grid infrastructure because it means they get less revenue. Because if the houses are buying energy from each other, they can't scrape a bit off of profit off of being the intermediary. So also in this case, the government is usually too slow or unwilling to help. Like, what does the government get out of this? But it's purely these peers that are going to benefit from this. So they can set up a Ethereum smart contract that will enable basically like a financial commitment. So in your smart contract, you can encode this logic. I, house A, am going to commit $10,000 to building this infrastructure. If house B and house C also commit this amount, then this amount will go to this contractor and only this contractor. And here you can read the terms in the contract and trust that it's not going to be violated. I can't take your funds or anything like that. So basically, you're using the Ethereum blockchain as a coordination layer. When you can't have coordination from some government or central entity, you can fall back onto the Ethereum blockchain and implement a technological solution to what was originally a social problem.
Now, we know that the UN Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development is a giant human enslavement program, and it's very possible that the same people who are behind this agenda, the 2030 thing, which outright states that they want every human being identifiable by the year 2030, is behind the making of Ethereum, or at least the applications early on top of Ethereum. Let's check out some of these logos. Now, again, with symbolism, some things can be brushed away as coincidence, other things cannot. In this lecture I found called Ethereum and Smart Contracts Enabling a Decentralized Future, Blockchain at Berkeley, the logo here is very interesting. I mean, the triangle thing, whatever, but the 3 symbols that look like 6s interconnected, this is one of those maybes, but pretty obvious from looking at it through spiritual goggles. Now, some of the early developers on Ethereum, the first one is Augur. Augur, which means of an event or circumstance, portend a good or bad outcome. And in ancient Rome, it was a religious official who observed natural signs, especially the behavior of birds, interpreting these as an indication of divine approval or disapproval of a proposed action. Very interesting, right? And also looking at the logo here with the pyramid and some sort of spherical portal type thing in the middle. Welcome to the future of forecasting. Augur combines the magic of prediction markets with the power of a decentralized network to create a stunningly accurate forecasting tool and the chance for real money trading profits. So it's kind of a trade forecast thing. It sees into the future. And some of its benefits, or what they call secret weapons, is no central servers, create your own market, low fees, crowdsourced reporting, and safe automated payments, all the things that you would want in this technology. But again, the logo and the name of the company is kind of interesting, but by itself, it's kind of like whatever. But if you consider the fact that there's also a company called Gnosis. And what is Gnosis? Crowdsourced wisdom. Based on Ethereum, the next generation blockchain network speculate on anything with an easy-to-use prediction market, another prediction market tool. And this one is very interesting because you have the owl, but also the wings of Babylon, which also looks like the Ahura Mazda, the Zoroastrian god of light, who was portrayed sitting inside of this winged sort of craft. And the owl itself, obviously connections to the secret societies, Bohemian Grove. And then there's this one, Golem, Worldwide Supercomputer. And if you guys are familiar with a documentary I released back in 2014 called Age of Deceit 2, Alchemy and the Rise of the Beast Image, I talked about the Golem and how it ties to transhumanism and ultimately the image and the mark. And here we have a company that's built on Ethereum called Golem, and they call themselves the Worldwide Supercomputer. Now, I learned a little bit about Golem, and the services sound pretty neat in terms of the capabilities. It says here, Golem is the new way the internet will work. It's an open-sourced, decentralized supercomputer that anyone can access. It's made up of the combined power of users' machine, from personal laptops to entire data centers. Anyone will be able to use Golem to complete almost any program you can think of, from rendering to research to running websites, in a completely decentralized and inexpensive way. The Golem network is a decentralized sharing economy of computing power where anyone can make money renting out their computing power or developing and selling software. So one of the revolutionary things as an example of what they're doing, for example, let's say you are a 3D artist and you need to render something. Now, it takes a lot of computing power to render things in Blender or other applications that require more computing power for rendering. So instead of just using your computer, you can tap into the Golem supercomputer and you can share the computing power of the Golem network to help render your project faster. That is kind of cool. But at the same time, looking at some other things that they're going to do here, it's certainly alarming. Machine learning, whether you're teaching an AI to beat Grandmaster or recognize images or human voice patterns, you can go to Golem to speed up the process. Cryptography, but also science. The world of science can benefit immensely from inexpensive and easy access to a powerful supercomputer, from DNA analysis to protein folding simulations to searching for alien life, and on and on. Interesting that Golem would set itself up as the tool for science to have DNA analysis, protein folding simulations, and looking for alien life, which makes me think that they're really trying to set this up as the system that's in place when they reveal all those things. I'll leave links to all this so you can look into it for yourself. But just going through those logos, you can see the suspicion of who's actually building on Ethereum right now in the early stages. Let me move on though for this video. Number 4, we have Biotech. Now we're right now in the age of virtual and augmented realities becoming available openly and freely. But we're getting closer and closer to the Internet of Things going biotech. And we ourselves, the human body, becomes the device. That's why the whole idea of Apple selling the I products, eventually the product is going to be you. You are going to be the machine. That's what they're going for. We will become nodes in the decentralized distributed ledger. Now think about it. If the requirement to buy and sell in the end times is to receive a mark, a physical etching of some kind, right? And www representing 666, the internet. Is it too far-fetched for some kind of decentralized token to provide something similar when we become the nodes? You know, how are we going to display consensus or agreement with the blockchain? Think about that. It's very, very strange. It goes back to the hive mind mentality. And then finally, number 5, quantum computers. It's believed by many that quantum computers is going to eradicate the encryption advantages of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And it's in my humble opinion that it's at this point where CERN and the opening of the abyss might bridge to all the people integrated and locked into a global computer system, and thus the abandonment of humanity from a large group of people who are tied into this system or decide to participate in the system by receiving the mark. Now, all this sounds a bit intense, and there's no way for me to say I know for certain that all these prophecies in the Bible will turn out this way with these technologies being put in place, but it's something we need to keep watch for. Now, as full disclosure, I own a couple Ethereum coins, and I'm learning how to do some things on top of it, building my own decentralized applications. And I'm doing so because I see this as an opportunity to be salt and light in the 21st century here. And it looks like there are folks in the higher echelon of the technocracy who are already building this stuff. We just went through some of the logos. It's here. And we know Russia and China, they're going to build on top of it too. And so if currency and commerce is headed in that direction of cryptocurrencies built specifically on Ethereum and also on the back of Bitcoin, we'll see what happens with the SegWit or Bit148, the hard fork. We'll see what happens if it's going to split or whatever. It would be irresponsible of us to just ignore these things and not at least educate ourselves about it. Because I truly believe that this is going to be the monetary system of the very near future. And for those who don't adapt, well, they're going to suffer. And we have to do this carefully and with vigilance because we know where this is ultimately headed. But I think it's a great opportunity to inform folks of the ultimate impending thing that the Bible prophesies with all this stuff. And also remember that the Bible tells us more about the end times than just the technological circumstances. There are definitely other geopolitical events surrounding Israel and the rise of a messianic military leader that we should expect to see leading up to the events that Jesus described as the abomination of desolation, which is a moment in time that I think involves some kind of false resurrection, which might coincide with the technological singularity, a mind uploading to the global brain system, whatever. All that stuff could take place in that moment. And it could result in the issuing of the mark of the beast, a requirement of the worship of the image. All these things can happen. And again, the geopolitical side of things also has to lock into place along with the technological developments, I think, for all this to be fully fulfilled. And again, we don't know when these things are going to take place, but it certainly feels like we're getting closer than ever before. Certainly, we can say that the technological infrastructure was nothing like this when prior generations of pastors and preachers speculated that this is the end. Again, only the Father knows, but I couldn't live with myself if I didn't at least share these perspectives and do what I'm called to do as a watchman. And if you're going to dabble into the crypto space, educate yourself first, don't spend what you can't afford to lose, and always seek the Holy Spirit for guidance. So I hope you get something out of this. Again, I'm taking a deeper dive in Age of Deceit 3, but I wanted to share this with you to give you guys a little perspective on where things are headed here with my research. Have an awesome day, guys. God bless.